When you look at this picture, you see the most decorated female gymnast in the world and a strong, empowered woman. But Simone Biles was put into foster care as a young child. She struggles with ADHD, and she was a victim of the Larry Nassar sexual assault case. Now, when you see this picture, you see one of the most influential women in the world and the owner of a multi-million-dollar TV production company. But did you know Oprah Winfrey grew up in extreme poverty, was raped and molested as a child, and got pregnant at age 14 and ended up losing the child? Social media and the media portrays people like Oprah and Simone as idols. They seem to be perfect from the outside, but behind that silver lining was and continues to be struggles. It doesn't just have to be those who you see on social media or in the media. It can be the person who sits next to you in math class, who seems to have that perfect GPA, has outstanding grades, and even got into an Ivy League school. They seem to be perfect, but you don't see the struggles that they go through every day. A perfect example of this is my sister Leah. She was an honor roll student in high school, swam on one of New Jersey's most competitive high school swim teams, and now goes to Indiana University. However, she struggles with extreme OCD. For about 5 months, she couldn't leave the house due to this mental health issue. But you wouldn't see that from her social media page or from a face-to-face interaction. It's like the saying, people only want to show their highlights. Nobody wants to show their struggles or their hardships. So what are the effects of constantly being surrounded by people who seem to be perfect? Huge comparison issues. I have struggled with these issues for as long as I can remember. In the first grade, they first began interfering with my life. Every time I would take a math test, I would watch as my peers would walk up and hand in their tests. My stomach would drop and my legs would begin to shake, and I would rush as fast as I could to finish the test. In my mind, the faster you handed in the test, the better grades you got. By doing this, I was putting myself down in the face of others and automatically putting those around me on a pedestal. Now I'm going to fast forward to March of 2022, when I began taking the SATs. There was no hiding it. I was comparing myself to every single person around me. I would be thinking, is my score too low? What's their score? How do I make mine higher? I took the SAT 5 times over the course of 8 months. Constantly being surrounded by those who had higher scores than me pushed me to get the score I wanted. But at what cost? By doing this, I was putting up walls between me and my friends and seeing them as competitors in a game to convince colleges that I was better. Now, in the following months, I began writing my college essays and finishing my applications. I would write my essays, have my friends read them, and I would read theirs. Inevitably, I would go back and delete my whole essay, thinking that mine was just not good enough. Throughout my whole college process, everyone around me seemed to have the perfect GPA, every extracurricular, and even have a nonprofit. But then I realized something. Everyone around me was struggling just as much as I was. I can remember on one occasion hearing from a friend that she had spent her morning crying in her car because of all of the pressures that she was feeling from the college process. My feelings felt validated. It is important that we are all open about the struggles that we go through, not only to ease our own inner conflicts, but to help those who are struggling with a similar issue. I still struggle with these issues, but I have learned to cope with them. Some strategies I have learned is to be proud of my own progression. For example, this past fall, when I began comparing myself again to those in my math class, I decided to take a step back and focus on my own progression. Sure, I hadn't gotten a perfect score, but my score had increased from my last test, which is something to be proud of. Another thing that I have learned is to celebrate others' achievements and to be your own best friend. So the next time you find yourself cheering or celebrating your best friend, make sure you do the same thing for yourself, even when things don't go the way you want them to. And I challenge you to find your worth in your own progression and your achievements, and rather not in comparing yourself to others. I also challenge you to realize that that person in your math class is not as perfect as you think they are, and they still struggle with similar issues as you. Thank you.